All right, before getting into today's Q&A video, I wanted to say that someone suggested when places in the middle of the country, places you don't usually go for poker, to say some restaurants that are pretty awesome in the area. You know, a lot of people go to Vegas, a lot of people know Vegas, but how many people know the Council Bluffs, Omaha, Papillion, Bellevue area? So if you want to go to my Patreon page, the Monday, February 24th post was that mentioned a few restaurants. Probably going to mention them predominantly in the newsletter, but I thought for at least the first one, maybe a few others, mention them in some of the free Monday Patreon posts, so you can go there and check those out. All right, first question, here we go. It's long, but it's pretty much saying where this person plays there, if you hit the bad beat, the tips after the bad beat are split evenly among every dealer in the room, and there are dealers he doesn't know and of course wouldn't be part of the hand, only one dealer would. Is there a way around tipping everyone like that? So first, what I've heard, I don't know if it's ever happened, I've heard people say, you know, if I hit the bad beat, I'm not going to tip you anything. We'll meet later in the alley. We'll meet later at the bar, in the parking lot. I don't know if that happens. I wouldn't. It's not fun paying taxes, but I would still keep everything like on the level in that way. What I would do, I would tip very small when the bad beat happens, and then maybe, you know, the next 50 times the dealer that actually dealt the bad beat hand to you, maybe the next 50 hands you win when that dealer is dealing to you, instead of tipping $1, tip a $25 chip. That's a way around it. I don't know if like word would get around that's what you're doing. Even if it does, I don't know if there's anything the floor could do. I don't think the floor is going to take tips, you know, a week, a month later out of that dealer's tip box, just because you're tipping $25 chips, not ones. But that would be my best way around it, to still keep everything like in the poker room. It's the best I came up with. All right, Rush had an interesting couple of questions. One is about pooling tips. Pooling tips is very common in table games, and I hear the reason is the tips can be so volatile. You could have like a high roller play for 45 minutes. You know, there's like no way to get every dealer dealing that table to get a share of the tips. In poker, you know, you deal 5 hours, 8 hours, whatever. You're gonna deal every table in small rooms, and like including the one big game. Even in Bellagio, you know, over the course of a week, everyone will have, you know, about the same amount of 1-3 tables, 2-5 tables, 5-10 tables. Everyone will have the same amount of downs in Bobby's room. So in poker, it's easier to get everyone dealing every table. So keeping tips is fair. If you have a lot of blackjack dealers and there's one high roller who comes in for like an hour and wins huge and tips huge, it's not really that like fair to just have that one dealer have those very large tips. So table games are pooled everywhere I know, and poker almost everywhere dealers keep their own tips. The better part of the question though, right-handed dealers, you need to be right-handed? That's an excellent question. Potawatomi back in the day, I know for a fact they wouldn't hire you if you were going to deal lefty. I think at the audition, if you dealt lefty, they were telling people like, you need to deal righty. So if you could pass the audition righty, great. If you can't, like, you're not passing this audition. Because there was someone who, it came up once, there was a dealer who was lefty, and he said he had to deal righty because they wouldn't hire lefty dealers. I've never heard of it anywhere else though. I know Council Bluffs has people dealing lefty. I remember in Prairie Meadows there was a lefty dealer. In Vegas there are lefty dealers. That's the only place I've heard of it being that strict. From Mr. 24 himself, does poker give you an adrenaline rush? Question about focus. So I will say not every time anymore. It used to be every time I played. Now if it's like a new place, like when I played Caesars New Orleans last year, every session during March Madness weekend, if I'm in town in Vegas during Super Bowl weekend, it's a pretty big weekend. This year it wasn't, based on the room rates I was seeing on Twitter, but certain places, certain times, still, not all the time. Historically, it's nice that two things synced for me. Being like fairly new to poker, like my early poker life and like middle poker life, and really needing the hours and the money synced, so I didn't have a problem. Now the volume isn't as important, the money isn't as important, and I've been doing it for a very long time now, so it's like, no, going to play, you know, Bellagio for like the 600th time on like a random Wednesday evening, it's not as thrilling as, like, you know, my third session ever in Potawatomi back in the day. And last question, do you target certain players and avoid others? This, interesting question. The short answer, yeah. I thought everyone was doing this, like, my whole life. And then I remember listening to one of the Barry Greenstein, Joe Ingram interviews. I think there were 3 like 4-hour interviews. In one of them, Greenstein said he does it, and he made it sound like when he talks to other people about this, not many other people were doing it, which I found shocking. But, like, of course, play differently against different opponents. Very straightforward opponents, you could just play way more hands. It's easy to tell when they missed a flop, when they smashed a flop. Very tight players, maybe they fold easily on boards they don't like, or maybe they're tight pre-flop but have a lot of trouble folding one pair. So if you ever flop better than them, you can win a large stack, especially useful if you guys are deep. And very good opponents. If you think, you know, the skill, there's not much of an edge, your skill and your opponent's skill, and, you know, maybe you have position but he has the betting lead, so those things are kind of evening each other out. Like, what else can you do? Well, you could play fewer hands. You could have the strength of your cards be one of your edges. So there's that. I definitely play differently against different opponents. Glad you enjoyed the video. If you want more free poker content and or print poker content as opposed to audio visual, feel free to go to my Patreon page, sign up as a free member, and you will see every free Monday post on my Patreon page. Here's how to do it. Any video of mine that you're watching, below the video you will see this gray box. It has some information, how many views the video has, it has when the video was published, it has some hashtags. If you scroll down a little, this is all you can see of the gray box at first glance, but on the bottom right you see the word more. You could click on more, you could drop it down so that you see everything in this gray box, the description of the video, and one of the things is the link to my Patreon page. Clickable link. You could click right there on the words Vegas Poker Nomad. It will bring you to my homepage on Patreon. You could sign up to be a free member and you will see every free Monday post if you want some more poker content or if you just want some poker content in print form.